Welcome to the Kinvestor Report, where I discuss mining, commodities, and the market with analysts and industry experts. I'm your host, Arlen Hanson. This interview is not investment advice. It is for listening pleasure only, and I will disclose any position owned by Kin or myself in this interview if they are mentioned. This interview is not paid for, sponsored for, or marketed by any public company. Today, I'm joined by Kai Hoffmann, Managing Director of Soar Financial Group. Kai has been active in the junior mining and exploration space for 15 years. I've known Kai for a long time. He's got great integrity, works really hard, and has fingers on the pulse in Europe, without a question. He also interviews global market experts about the US dollar, Fed action, gold, silver, and mining stocks on his YouTube channel, Soar Financial. Hey, Kai, it's great to see you. How you doing today?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks for having me on, Arlen. Really appreciate it. It's been long
Yeah.
overdue.
Yeah, well, we've been in this business for a long time, crossed paths over the years. And I really wanted to tap into you about some of the psychology about the German market, which I think is a very interesting landscape, especially in the commodities, et cetera, et cetera. What makes up the German investing landscape? Is it more of a retail audience there, institutional audience there, or family office? Like, where do you think like the mining investor is there?
Yeah, Arlen, I think it's German market is an interesting one because as you correctly pointed out, it's mostly retail and family offices. And we've got a long-standing history of investing in junior mining and junior exploration companies. I think it stems a bit from our history. And, you've seen the Weimar hyperinflation back in the 1920s. We love gold. We hate money, right? Fiat currency is something, we don't favor. Having the euro back here in Germany is not our favorite thing, quite honestly, especially if you peg it or if you throw in the mix that, certain countries shouldn't potentially be in the euro and weakening potentially our currency. I'm curious where the Deutsche Mark would be right now, given the global context of everything. But that said, like the German market loves junior mining stocks. Some of us are degenerate gamblers, I have to admit, and we're having a great time in investing in junior mining stocks. Of course, we chase returns. Sadly, we're also quite prone to scams and promotions and things like that. Like there's not enough of a filter sometimes.
Mhm.
So but the German retail investor in general is a very loyal investor. Up until like 10 years ago, the German tax regime said that if you hold a stock for longer than a year, capital gains there were no capital gains. That's changed, of course, and
Mhm.
now it's about 26.25% or 26.75%, I think, and so the mentality is changing a little bit. But in general, and I read a statistic somewhere that Germans buy and sell the same stock 4 times a year. All right,
Interesting.
but so they keep coming back to the same names. So they're a really
Mhm.
loyal shareholder base. And I've said it to investors and companies in the past as well. I believe the German market has been carrying the Canadian mining markets back in 2015. And I think we've seen that to a degree this summer as well. Like their volume was very low. The European investor in general, not just the Germans, but European investors have been supporting the junior mining markets and making up quite a bit of it, I'd say.
Yeah. Um, so speaking of that, like like the mood right now? Are you guys just as depressed as we are?
Not as badly, perhaps, but
Yeah.
we're not far off, right? We've been getting some good feedback on road shows, but that's of course depends on the story. That really depends. But in general, like I think the European market, German market in particular, it is more active right now than the Canadian, and I think sentiment is changing overall in the junior mining space. I was just at the Beaver Creek conference. And the mood was positive. I posted about that on Twitter and LinkedIn as well. Like we're in the final stage of grief here. We're in the acceptance stage, right?
Finally.
Like nobody's been complaining. Nobody's been complaining about the state of the market, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, they've
yes,
accepted it.
I
Yeah.
think some of the stocks have already started moving. GDX is up 30%. Gold is up 26%, 27% right now. So we're slowly starting to outpace the gold price, which is great, but we're still far behind where we should be. So I think we're just in early innings. The train is still in the station, I think, and I think sentiment is changing just globally as well.
So do you think we're in the early innings with these investors because that landscape that we're targeting or the people that you talk to, are they because we're all in the junior game, right? Like the mid caps have moved, right? The big caps have moved, and we're the last ones standing, just waiting, right? You think that's the issue?
To a degree, but just an I am gold made 100%. I don't think that's the be all and end all yet. Look some of the major names; they're only moved 15%. Yes, Agnico is trading at an all-time high, but I think that's a poster child for a well-run company in the gold space, outperforming Barrick, Newmont, and being a proper gold company. I think Nikki Etzet-Belt said it really well at the Denver Gold Show. She's like, "Well, it's the only company that's actively marking themselves as a gold company and not trying to be something else."
Interesting.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's one of her reasons why Agnico is doing better, and I tend to agree to that. Like if you believe that there's going to be a recession looming, why would you buy a copper gold company or gold copper company the way
Yep.
Barrick is marketing itself, right? So there's
Yeah.
always a bit of downside. What happens if the copper price drops to $3 while gold is still at $2,700?
Yeah.
So there's that a bit of a disconnect in marketing. Of course, you hedge your bets a little bit by adding copper to the mix. If you depending on whose analyst or analysis you want to believe, there's going to be a massive supply crunch in copper. So I think long term, I think we're on the right track. But don't forget where you come from. And gold is a very, very important commodity, and you're generating a ton of cash flow from that. So focus on that. And I think there's still a lot of room to go.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, at 2,700 or 2,650 gold, where we're at right now, there's a lot of room to grow.
So considering the Germans here have an understanding of junior exploration and mining, like who are the big mining companies in Germany? Like forgive my naivety here, but I don't know a lot of major mining producers out of Germany. So like where would this knowledge base come from?
Oh, that's a good question. We have some fantastic geology schools in
Okay.
Freiberg and Aachen, right? So fantastic universities for geology. Quite a few geologists are German, and
Hmm.
they work at. I think the geologist over at Ascot is German. There's a few you keep running into. You might not see them running companies,
Hmm.
but there are quite a few Germans in the sector, unbeknownst. But German mining companies, there aren't many. We have K plus S is a large potash company
Yep.
out of Kassel, just about
They
2 hours
made me a
north of
lot
here.
of they made me a lot of money back in the days.
Oh,
They
that
bought
you
yeah,
owned,
they had Potash One. Yeah, that was my
yeah.
client and my deal. So that was great.
But that's pretty much it. Of course, we have
Yeah.
some coal mining companies back, like RWE, but that's not really a coal company. Like that's it. Like we don't have any mining more left. There's a few oil and gas companies here, Deutsche Rohstoff, a company I'm quite close to, but there's the mining history is gone. Sadly,
Hmm.
like we don't have that heritage anymore. Of course, there's mining rich regions, the Erzgebirge. Still a lot of mining, or there was a lot of mining in the past. I think there's one company trying to explore right now, maybe two. But quite honestly, I doubt that they'll ever get a construction permit or a mining permit ever again.
Yeah. What are the key factors that investors over in Europe prioritize when evaluating mineral exploration companies? What do you think? Is it like the management? Is it the assets? Is it promotion? Is it like, what do you think these guys are latching onto to try to make money?
I think it is promotion to a degree, and I hate to say it, and
Hmm.
because I don't really fall in that bracket. Because the
Yeah,
problem is with people, they're too far away. Like it's a bridge I'm trying to gap
totally.
here, or a gap I'm trying to bridge. That's the saying. Um, we try to bring the companies over to Europe, but again, German investors not necessarily deeply ingrained in this space. They don't travel as much. You go to the conferences, you run into a few, but not a lot of German investors that travel, that do site visits. Sadly, so I think people is a secondary, and then project as well. It's a tertiary then to a degree.
Hmm.
I'd say many of them fall for promotion and good stories,
Hmm.
storytelling. And promotion is a dirty word. I don't like the word promotion per se.
Yeah,
It's more the storytelling.
yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily have to be promotion, but if you can spin a good yarn, say you're talking about the critical minerals aspect of projects that could be interesting to the EU because the EU just launched a new fund and those companies could be eligible. I think you can get some interest, and doesn't really mean that the project is viable, that the company itself and the people are above board here. So it's I'd say they follow the narrative more than
Hmm.
the project and the people.
Well, like so many of these companies are born out of North America, right? And management teams are born out of here. And like, so what's the perception? Management like, companies built in Canada, manager goes over to Germany for one show and this never comes back. Is that any value? Like, if you got to build those relationships with the investors, right? And it sounds like that's what the investors are kind of missing from these opportunities in North America is really that one-on-one time, that relationship building time, that trust time,
That's
right?
what they deserve, quite
Hmm.
honestly.
They
Like,
totally deserve it.
and a lot of management teams pay lip service to their investors over here. Like, yeah,
Hmm.
as you said, they come once, they forget it. Maybe they come back 2 years later. They spin an interesting story. They can't follow through. Germans and or European retail investors have often been called dumb money, which really pisses me off
Hmm.
because it just means that they're being taken advantage of. And
Yeah.
for certain reasons that I've mentioned earlier, just uneducated doesn't mean dumb, but uneducated meaning like they might not know who's behind the deals, they might not know who's involved. Maybe the equity story falls short of expectations because they're working in an area that wouldn't make any sense to work in due to, let's say, indigenous reasons or lacking of social license, things like that they're not totally honest about. So Those companies really tick me off. I'm really trying to stay far away from them, and I don't want to see them marketing in Europe. Quite honestly, really trying to apply a filter here,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
hope
yeah.
some of
You're
them see that and shy away and don't ever reach out, right?
yeah.
But
Good for you.
it is true, right? So Germans have always been seen as dumb money, and it ticks me off. And I'm trying to help educate. We run a conference to try to help educate a little bit and to make a clearer picture, so that the good companies do get the investment dollars that they deserve, and that the respect is also mutual.
Hmm. How does the German business culture and mindset impact investment decisions in like the natural resource sector? Like, do you find that German investors take a more cautious or long-term approach to what they're looking at, or are they very much still let's chase this money fast? And it's not a bad thing, right? It's we're here to make money. But do you see a long-term investor over there, or do you see someone who's just still trading, or is it just a mix of everything still?
I think it's a mix of everything coming from the long term angle. I think it's going more short term based with everything we're seeing in social media. Everybody thinking short term nowadays. But I mentioned earlier, like the capital gains tax situation back in Germany, I think built a bit of a long term mindset. So Germans are general loyal shareholders. They do want to see a story come through that they follow along. There is a plan, like, and I've heard it numerous times from investors. They have a bit of a checklist where they want to see, okay, timeline. They said they were going to drill this summer. Okay, have they drilled? Have they delivered their PEA, resource update, and things? So it's a long term approach. They follow along. Like we've had companies that we worked with 3-4 years ago, and investors still give me a call and say, "Hey, Kai, what do you know about this company? I bought some stock 4 years ago. What do you know?" Right. So there is a longer term aspect to it, and I think that's where Germans are strong. That's why they're loyal. They're decent shareholders to have. So I can highly promote the German marketplace, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. Let's switch into some commodities here. Everything I read, Germany doesn't like nuclear power. So that's what I read in the media and the government. So, but what about the general public?
Oh, excellent question. A very controversial topic, although the pendulum is swinging back to pragmatism, which is great because, of course, the Green Party came into power a few years ago, and I think they were just trying to fulfill one of their campaign promises from the 70s, trying to get rid of nuclear, right? And they
Yeah,
finally managed to do so,
yeah.
which is great for them. Congratulations, big win. Time to move on. Quite honestly, let's get more pragmatic. I've just seen a statistic, and maybe I'll find it later, but where they compared France and Germany power production. I think we're producing about 500 and maybe 18. Oh, I have to look the number up. But our CO2 emissions are about 50 times higher than France, for example. France is using nuclear power and wind and hydro, while we're using coal, wind, and hydro, and we're producing 15 to 20 times more carbon emissions, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I think that's absolutely counterproductive for what the Green Party really wanted. And if you follow German media, more and more information is coming alight that there's been I wouldn't call it a misunderstanding, but maybe misleading and misjudging of situations, falsifying of documents, a lot of things that should have been taken into consideration that weren't. And people are starting to figure out, okay, I think this is all a hoax, and maybe we'll see a 3 Mile 2.0 over here in Europe, in Germany, where we see nuclear reactors being restarted, just
Hmm.
because it makes sense. And I
It
think that's where
does.
the German public in general starts to shift their thinking to, because German power is expensive. I think I'm paying 37-38 cents a kilowatt hour over here, which is
What?
absolutely ridiculous, because I think in Vancouver, where you are, I think it's 7 to 8 cents or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's a joke, and it's not competitive.
That's
No nation
crazy.
can be competitive. If energy costs are that high, it's a big competitive advantage having low energy costs. We're
Hmm.
seeing that, and I think the Volkswagen crisis is highlighting that as well. We're saying, oh, Volkswagen is saying we cannot be cost competitive anymore. It doesn't work. Our costs are way too high. It's not just energy. There's other factors going into it as well. But it shines a light on that. And I think people are slowly waking up that the course we've taken is probably the wrong one.
Yeah, yeah. What are you paying for like a liter of gas right now?
Oh, I just mentioned that. It says euro 65. It's come down tremendously.
So a buck
So
65 euro,
so
the
that's in
euro
Canadian
65.
dollars times 1.45 roughly.
It's two
So
two
that's like
fifty.
220, something like
Yeah,
that.
220. Yeah, yeah,
So it's 220 a liter Canadian.
yeah.
It's come down 25% though, because I played close to €2 before a liter as well. So it's come down quite a bit, based on oil prices at about $70 a barrel right now as well. So it's come down quite a bit.
Yeah. I've seen gas prices in Vancouver like stay at a buck 70 for I swear to God, 4 months straight. I've never seen it so flat ever. which is interesting. Okay. Okay. Gold. You talked about gold. It's one of my favorite topics. You said Germans love gold. Why?
We do. We do. Well, back in the 1920s, we had massive hyperinflation in the Weimar Republic. And I'm definitely too young to remember it, but it's ingrained in our DNA. It's just to protect your money, just protect your wealth. It doesn't mean everybody owns 100% of all their reserves in gold, but a lot of people understand the value of gold, especially the older generation, of course. The younger generation is lagging behind that in that understanding a little bit. But sadly, our investment community consists of the older generation still, and I think it always will be. And the older you get, the wiser you get as well, and you start to think about monetary implications. And you probably have enough capital at some point to think about that as well. Because when you're 20, who's got enough money to think
Yeah.
about protecting their wealth,
You're
even if it's
building
just
you're building
5%
your
of the
wealth. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly right. So,
Yeah.
no, it's been ingrained in our DNA. We love bullion. You go to a bullion show, you go to a show, people show up with bags of money to buy bullion, right? And Germans love it.
Fiat currency to hard currency. Yes.
Yeah, pretty much. Like they give
Love it.
you, I give them this paper and I
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
gold back, right? How awesome is this?
It
So
feels good. It feels good, right? To like hold that in your hands afterwards.
fantastic.
It feels good to me. Okay, so that's the history. Well, it's interesting that you talk about like the age bracket there. I was just at the Metals Investment Forum, and they do a great job at conferences here in Vancouver and Toronto and things like that. And like decent attendance. Gold was ripping that day, but again, I just look across the crowds, and it's all white hair,
Yeah, unless
right?
you throw a Bitcoin company into the
Yeah,
mix or a couple,
it's
like it's tough to attract a younger audience.
yeah. Like I'm almost 50, and I still felt young in that crowd. And I was talking with a bunch of the newsletter writers that we sat down and had lunch with. I said, in 5 years, this is gonna totally change. Like this room is going to be young kids looking to make money because now they've learned you can make money in mining stocks. And that generation from 22 to 35 right now, they've never seen it.
But do
They
you
just
think they'll
haven't
be too
seen it.
late in 5 years? I think that's the big question because are we
Well,
going
I
to
think
wipe
that
out
will.
another group of investors, right?
Well, it's not you and I are not going to wipe them out. They're going to wipe themselves out,
That's what I mean.
right? Because
Right?
they will be the dumb money. Right. And
Yeah.
I don't mean to say, sorry, guys, you're dumb, but it's just, you have to learn from experience, right? And policies can't protect investors from making dumb decisions,
Yeah, they
right?
might be coming
Eh,
into the market at the wrong time.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it's going to be a very interesting shift, I think, over the next 5 years as we start seeing, these mining stocks starting to give returns to investors, right? Like who's made money in the last 13 years, give or take, right? Um, so let's talk about your show. You got one coming up here. Fall is a great time. There's tons of conferences. You've got a very standout show overseas. Talk about that, what the dates are, what kind of companies are presenting, and what you do to gather investors to bring people there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And we've really worked hard on this. It's called Deutsche Goldmesse, German Gold Show. And as I said earlier, it's really close to my heart that there's an educational aspect to the whole conference. It's not just about bringing investors and companies together, but also educate. So we have some panels, we have keynote speakers, just to name a few: Clem Chambers, Keith Neumeyer, Matthew Peipenberg, and I have to look. I was like, I should have done my homework here, but I forgot the fourth one. It's Henry Zeberg, and
Oh, nice.
really love that Henrik is coming up because he's always a bit of a contrarian
Yeah.
when it comes to gold. He says we're going to crash hard before we rally big time, and that's always a bit of a contrarian take. So I really love having both views at the table as well. We're not always just hurrah promoters. Sadly, I hate that. As I said, I hate that term. But
I'll cross it off in the interview.
please, please,
I
like
will censor it.
it has such negative connotations that we're
Yeah.
trying to stay very far away from. Right.
Yeah.
But as
Yeah.
I said, like we have fantastic panels planned. Fabi Lara, Yellow Bull from Twitter are joining us so we can have an
Oh,
educated
awesome.
uranium discussion, for example. But companies as well, like really looking for a First Majestic, Yukon Metals. Let me just get the list here real quick because it is a really good curated list of companies like Orania, Cartier Resources, C3 Metals, Delta, Dolivar, just to name a few. And of course, it's called German Gold Show, but we're really agnostic, right? There are copper names in there, gold, silver. We're just trying to find good stories and companies that sort of that fit the investor profile, right? Go Gold is coming out as well. Like that's a name that's been widely followed in Germany, and investors have made money with in the past. So I think really, really proud of what we put together here. November 21st and 22nd in Frankfurt, Germany. We're hosting it at the Westin Grand Hotel. Free to register for investors, of course, germangoldshow.com or deutschegoldmesse.com. And, you might want to put that in the show notes. That'd be highly appreciated.
Yes, we will. Don't you worry. I got a marketing team for that. Yeah, what you do is you do a good job of bringing quality companies like that. I know. Right. And that's why I respect what you do in your platform, that what you do. So like, what are you doing to make sure that like, it's almost like you're protecting your investors by being a little bit of that middleman to being like, hey, these guys passed my sniff test. Right. So like, what are you doing for that? Because you do a good job at it.
No, it's like it is close to my heart as well. And I think that's a bit of the reputation we've built as well. It's like, hey, Kai, you bring good companies. I'm really proud of that. And it also puts a lot of pressure on me, to be honest. But many of the companies I've broken bread with, right?
Yeah.
Like I've met them, we've had beers together. It's a mining industry after all, right? Or I've been to site. Like we really put an extra effort in. We go to site, we meet the teams, being at the Beaver Creek conference, being at any of the other conferences. We really put an effort in to have close relationships with the teams because our investors respect that, they want that, and they trust it to a degree. Like, of course, we can't be like we're not immune to disaster, but on the contrary, we've had Philo Mining at the conference that's been bought out for $4.5 billion, and other takeouts of the companies, right? Montage Gold, Fireweed, they're all Lundin companies now, have been big supporters of the event that have all been coming out in the past that investors could have made money with and are still making money with. Right?
Yeah.
And that's really close for us. And again, it gives me sleepless nights sometimes having that pressure on my shoulders.
Of course, man. Of course, we've got responsibilities. We got food to put on our plate, and we got to do it with integrity, right?
That's important. It might not be steak every night. I'll tell you that.
It was craft dinner for a lot of years for me, buddy. Right?
Ramen.
Yeah, ramen noodles, things like that. And that's just being honest, right? There was a bear market there that was not easy to get through, but feel like we're back, and it's going to be a lot of fun over the next few years. That's for sure. So, right on, Kai. Thanks so much for your time today, buddy. Hopefully, I'll be heading over there just to join your show because it sounds like there's gonna be a lot of good opportunities to look at. So I'll probably fly over there to be there, and yeah, we'll connect when we're there. But thanks so much for being on my show today, and I think it's some great answers to some questions my audience would certainly be listening to. So there you go.
Appreciate it, Arlen. Yeah, you're always welcome. Make sure to come out.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Kai. Take care.